Hello everyone, it's Unit 13 here on Scene at the Homestead, and I want to make sure that you got that warning at the beginning. If you didn't, or you skipped it, or you missed a sentence, go back and read it word for word. And make sure that you pay attention to all of that, because it's very important stuff. Your life could depend on it, or those around you, so go back and read it. Make sure that you follow it precisely. That being said, I've been checking out some YouTube videos here lately and noticing that people are dyeing their gear, and they themselves have said that they're not getting the results they want. So I thought I'd go ahead and put up a video demonstrating the results that I got using a particular product and following a recipe, or not a recipe, but a technique of keeping it at a constant temperature for a certain length of time to get what I think are pretty darn good results. You could always experiment around and get better than I have, but I'm satisfied with what I've seen so far come out of my dye vats. So what do we need to know to get started? Okay, so let's talk about the stuff that I used to put this together. I used this dye called iDye Poly. And if you can see it, look up on the screen there, you'll see that I've got the website address if you want to get some of this. Probably want to get at least 2 dye packets. The dye packets are something like $2.75 a piece or something like that. Believe me, it's not out of your budget, that's for sure. So this here I have used by itself because the company does recommend, even though if you look up there it'll say for polyester and nylon fabrics and polycotton blends, yet Jacquard, who makes that dye, will suggest that you also use simultaneously, if you're going to use a polycotton blend in there, that you use one of their natural dyes with it to help ensure that the natural fabrics will take up that dye. Because I have tried to dye all cotton stuff with the iDye Poly and it didn't take it. It was amazing to see some hot cotton go in that boiling water and come out just the same color that I put it in there. It was really interesting. Polyesters will do the exact same thing if you don't keep the water simmering. You have to keep the water at a low simmer, or the polyesters that I've dyed won't take up the dye at all. That's another thing that's been an interesting phenomenon to me. Okay, now that being said, I also have a little bit more comment at the end of this section about the use of the all natural dye by itself. You'll see a result with that. For dyeing in, I used a stock pot that came with the 30 quart, or the turkey fryer that was on sale from Bass Pro. All the pertinent information about that is up on the screen. You'll also see a long pair of tongs that I got from the restaurant store. Get long ones so you can reach deep into the container all the way to the bottom without getting your hands burnt, and keep your hands at a distance from steam coming out of there, because boy, there's nothing hardly will burn you faster than steam. I usually maintain the temperature of the water when I'm dyeing military surplus under 200, but usually between the 190 to 200 degree range. It seems to fluctuate up and down, but that's where I've got my best results. When I go over that temperature, it seems to be too much for the fabrics and nylons, and will stiffen them up somewhat. So I keep the temperature lower, as you can tell. And then the other note that I made up here, you can look on the screen. Cordura says, and this is right off of a PDF that I've read, it says the melting point for their product is 254 degrees Celsius or 498 point something Fahrenheit. So we're well within the range there to of safety for that fabric, dyeing it. And then as for the level, the water level, you can see there in the hot caution attention area, that's where the water level ran. And then there's also an inside view. You can see where the water level is a little bit higher before I took this photo, but it will start as that fabrics pick up the water. It's amazing how much water they'll drain out of these dyes or this vat. I don't know if I mentioned before. Like I said, I start with a couple of dye packs, and then I'll add more depending on the volume of stuff I'm dyeing. The other thing to note is once you use this aluminum container for dyeing, you probably don't want to use it for anything else ever again, because in my experience, no matter how clean that container looks, when I start heating up the water for the next batch, it will leach color from somewhere inside that thing, and I scrub it so clean it does not look like there's any green anywhere to be had in there, and it will leach it. So do not ever eat out of this container ever again if you use it for dyeing. Now that's my advice, and I usually don't give advice except to consult with your physician or attorney about everything, whatever. When you with these dye packs, it comes in two pieces. There is a little packet that you drop in, and that it will self-dissolve, but I help it along because otherwise you'll wait all day for that thing to dissolve itself. And there's also this color enhancer that you put in there as well. So make sure that you put that in. In fact, I've almost forgotten the color enhancer a couple times, so I've changed that I put the color enhancer in before I put the dye in. So that way I know if I do it that way each time, I'm not going to forget the color enhancer, because I'm certainly not going to forget the dye. Remember that. Color enhancer first, dye second. That way you know you didn't forget it. And then the other thing is that came in real handy from that same, that turkey fryer, was that turkey rack inside is this star shape. And it really holds stuff down well. Sometimes you have to put something across the inside of it to hold everything down well, but it works pretty darn good. And then the other thing I noticed was trying to hold things submerged inside the bath is not the easiest when you're trying to dye things that have foam in it. For instance, the harness, any of the equipment that has foam in it. I'm trying to remember some stuff that has foam specifically. The Molly 2 belt on the Molly frames. That would be a good example there. You're going to have to submerge that thing somehow. And this is the only way that I came up with. If you're able to see that where that arrow is, I flattened out a spot on the upright part of the that turkey rack, and just drilled a hole big enough for it to fit through the lid. That way it would hold it down if I put weights on it. However, after the second or third use of that within the same day, it stretched the hole because that aluminum is so thin and weak up there. What I had to do was add a washer so that won't push through the hole up there or stretch it out anymore. And I haven't had any more trouble at all since then. The other thing that's really important to note is if you're going to put something like a belt or straps from a backpack in there, make them in a circle pattern. The other thing that might help, what I did when I did the pack straps, the shoulder straps to the Molly 2, is I got a lingerie bag. That's something that you wash delicate clothes in. Go into the laundry section of your grocery store and look for like a lingerie bag, and that's that's good for putting all kinds of different things in that get loose in the washer or bang around. You can keep it all together. So anyway, I put the pack straps inside this lingerie bag, and that held it all together so it wasn't all floating and sticking out of the water everywhere. Then I submerged that, and that really did help a whole lot as I was dyeing, because as you can see later on, I did get some pretty good results for those pack straps. All right, so once you've got that into the circular shape your items in, every 15 minutes, I rotated the items and to just make sure that any part of the stuff that I'm dyeing isn't laying directly on the bottom for the entire length of the time, because that will be coming into contact with the heat source. So you don't want to bake or cook your stuff directly over that heat. You want to keep rotating it so it doesn't overheat any portion of your good stuff. And then okay, I do demonstrate here in the video that you want to lift those items. You want to completely, what I do, that's why I say the tongue length is important. So you can reach all the way to the bottom and grab the bottom item and pull it to the top, like you see there. Okay, and then once you're finished, after an hour, I leave that thermometer on there when I can, unless I'm moving something out of the way or changing something, because I want to know the temperature is consistent. That's how you get a good result. So once you're finished, just move all that stuff out of the way. I guess here, let's see what's going on in the video. Oh, the little tip about magazine pouches, like Alice type magazine pouches. That lid does not drain. And so if you have it tipped upside down, the first time I pulled one out, the entire lid was full of dye. I spilled that everywhere. Don't let it happen to you. Tilt that thing down and let it drain through the or through the drain hole grommet in the bottom. Anyway, oh man, that was a mess. Don't let dye go everywhere. You'll hate it. All right, and then when I pull the items out, I let them cool down. I just use these really big stainless steel mixing bowls for that purpose, because they hold quite a bit of stuff there. I let the items cool down for maybe about 10 minutes until they're at least cool enough for me to touch by hand. And then I'll drop them into the sink and rinse them by hand. Remember, I'm wearing gloves the whole time that I'm dealing with this. I never mentioned the gloves at the beginning. But you want to wear some type of gloves, otherwise everybody will know that you've been dyeing over the weekend, and they'll probably think, if you use this green dye, they'll think you've been to one of those crazy Irish parties or something. All right, anyway, here, so rinsing in the sink. When you're rinsing in the sink, it's gonna rinse pretty clearer than you might expect, but there'll still be a light tint to the water. I didn't have a photo here, sorry about that, but there will be a light tint to the water. Don't worry about that. Start running it. And the other thing, something I read in the instructions somewhere where it was talking about washing in cold water. I decided to not wash it in cold water as part of my experiment, because if I'm dyeing it in hot water and I wash it in cold, that may not rinse out all of the loose dye that I want out. So I would rather have to dye the thing again and get all of the loose dye out of it than have, and I mean loose dye. That's not like there'll be powder inside your thing or on it. I mean that it'll be free to come off of the surfaces, which here, let's see, there's coming up, which I'm going to talk about right now. Here I do have the photos. what you'll notice is that if it has a coating, and most of these military fabrics do, they have that waterproofing on the inside, that will take up a lot of dye. And if you don't rinse it in hot water, I'm saying at least 3 times, maybe more, you can get some color transfer off of that. It's not that visible on this piece of paper here, but it's there. So you'll want to note that, and make sure that anything that you put in there after that fact is okay to have a little bit of transfer on it, because it's always a possibility if you do not get all of that color rinsed out, which is why I'm going on so long about using hot water in your rinse, and rinsing that and washing it at least 3 times before you use it. Okay, let's see what's next. Oh, the other note that I have is that out of all the color transfer that I've ever gotten from dyeing this military surplus, it has been from the inside coatings. I've never had color transfer to the outside by rubbing or anything like that. And I've tried to have it happen. Doesn't mean it won't happen to you, or it won't happen to me later when I'm dyeing something else. But that's it. Okay, so here I think I'm going to pause this for a second. Okay, I paused this back. I want you to watch this little section that I made about the Molly tube. Okay, here's a separate little thing I'm shooting just so you can see this. What happened to the this belt? See how that's all stuck down there, like collapsed? See if I can get that angle. Yeah, I don't know if that's clear or not. Anyway, this was in the dye bath, and I took it out to check it to just see how it was doing in terms of the color dye that it was, you know, what color it was dyeing it. And I thought that, oh, I'll just run it under cool water really quick to handle it. And when I did, it was amazing to watch. This came out of the dye bath in its original shape, and then let me move this camera back. As soon as the cold water hit this, it collapsed. It was like a vacuum just pulled it down in an instant. It was, if you've ever watched one of those videos of how they do Kydex holsters, and that instant vacuum, that's what it looked like happened to this thing. It instantly just did something. So there's very little cushion left to it, which is why you see the snaps on here, because I made some snap-in cushions to fill out where the padding is just, it's really thin padding now. Very, very thin. It's amazing what happened to that. I'm going to run a test on another one that'll show up later in this video. We'll see how that goes. I just wanted you to see that. And also the other thing is, see the spots that didn't take the dye? These were inside the dye vat like this. You can see where the crease was. And I had too much stuff in there. What I would do to stop this from happening is make it more loose inside the dye bath and only put this in by itself. I had this in with something else before. Then also halfway through, if it was rolled up like this through the first half, I'd unroll it and roll it out so that this was turned the opposite direction, like this, so that this was exposed to the dye bath the same way and not compressed. So we'll see how the other one goes once I dye it, and then you'll see in another segment after this one. All right. Part 2 of the Molly waist belt. And I didn't do anything with the cold water. Oops, kind of moving fast there, sorry about that, but I didn't do anything with the cold water, and as you can see, it's kept its integrity. It still has its cushion. I don't know if it's as cushiony as it was before. I can't really remember, but it's there. And I mentioned before doing this backwards inside the dye bath. I didn't do that. I would have done that with, of course, this being my second one. I would do that way first. So this side get exposed first to the dye, and then turn this around and let it be in this position inside the dye bath. Yeah, that's I'm not gonna try and show you that. That's not gonna work. But then it would be in this position in the final parts of its dye bath. That way, this would get dyed first, and then it would finish out being in that circular shape, because you can see here it held that kind of circle shape when it came. This was flat, and then it formed to that circle shape inside the dye bath. So I'm gonna say that, like I say, do this where this is open first, and then goes finish it off when it's inside there like that. And then let's see. Here is the Molly straps. And like I said, if there's a slight compression, or maybe not slight compression, but when there's compression in there, you can see this didn't take much dye at all. It's so strange how that is. And this was in the dye bath in a circular shape like this, so there was pressure here. Sorry, this video is not very good, but just trying to demonstrate a couple things there too. Alright, so you can see held its integrity this time, but I'll still probably add some padding. I found this other padding I'm going to take a second look at. Alright. Okay, you see how that turned out? There's a before and an after of the shoulder straps. And, oh no, looks good enough to me. Suits my taste. The other thing that you need to be aware of is, are any of those clear plastics, like those map pockets or whatever they are inside these packs. What you need to know about those is they will turn the color that you're dyeing your bag, as you can see in this little short clip here. So be prepared for that. My plan on that Molly 2 Medic pack that you're looking at here was I was going to take that out and then sew it back in, and I forgot to do it, and that's the result. I forgot to put that on my notes. There you go. Alright, the other thing is, in that same bag that we were just talking about, in one of the pockets, I thought I had taken this neoprene intubation kit out and set it someplace else. So that went into the dye vat. In the words of caution about dyeing neoprene, don't. It wasn't my intention to dye this. It was a complete and total mess up, and it did mess it up. That thing is like flat as a crepe now. I'm not kidding you. It's amazing what happened to the neoprene in the dye vat. But that explains why I had such a hard time keeping that thing, or that bag, down after I had taken the original foam pad out of it. Anyway, neoprene, don't put it in the vat. You'll probably be very disappointed. And then the other thing is the iDye natural, for the natural fabrics. What you see, here's the before of a military issue pack cover. And there's an original one in the middle there that's undyed. The one on the left was dyed for 30 minutes in the natural dye without any of the iDye poly. And then the one on the right was dyed for an hour. And there's a definite color difference in the two. So when dyeing with the natural fabrics, I thought that if I left it in there long enough, like I did with the nylons, I would get that same deep sprucey, foresty green result. But nothing like that. You can see here in the photos, there's the evidence of it. The next thing I'm going to do is dye. I don't have it done yet, but I'm going to dye that one on the left that's really light green with the iDye poly and the natural, because I have some out there, and I'm going to throw that in my next batch of dye. The largest thing that I dyed in that vat was a London Bridge Trading 1562 Bravo bag, which is their, what is it called again, their training coverage pack or something. So this is the result. When I got the pack, somebody had dyed it blue, but the results weren't very good. So I think that I just didn't like that too much. What I think everyone's doing is following. This is a really important side note. I think the reason people aren't getting good results from their dye is maybe not necessarily it's the dye you're using. It's probably the length of time and the temperature. Those are the crucial things in my experience. I don't know if that's for everyone, but that seems to if you follow the formula that I use there, it will probably get the same results with your dye. Goodness. I sure hope I've told you everything. You can always ask me in the comments if there's something that I haven't covered and you're curious about. For the rest of the video, I'm going to close it out with some of the stuff that I have dyed, and so you'll be able to see a before and an after of those items, so you can get an idea of what type of results you might get if you use if you dye your gear following the techniques that I used here. If you do, if you use this and it works for you, please come back and write like down a comment or something like that, how it worked for you, or better yet, make a YouTube video on it. That would really be great, because you might learn something or figure out something that I hadn't even thought of, and then you can share that with the rest of us. All right, I can't think of anything else. This is Unit 13. I'm out of here.